Our guy is beaming with pride as he gazes around his newly opened restaurant. 15 years of hard work have finally paid off. Now he's living the dream, or so it seems. He's got a huge smile plastered on his face. He's finally achieved his childhood dream of becoming a top chef, attending an art school with a culinary arts department, determined to make a name for himself in the culinary world. But life had other plans, and now he's here, in this moment. Instead of chopping veggies and sautéing meats, he found himself transported to a fantasy world. Talk about a recipe for disaster. Now he's got to navigate this strange new world with its own set of rules and weird creatures. A gruff stranger approaches him, telling him to get his act together or risk becoming roadkill during evacuation. Our chef-to-be looks around bewildered, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings and wondering what's going on. The stranger raises an eyebrow at his unusual outfit. Our hero realizes he's a fish out of water, or rather a chef out of his kitchen. The stranger explains they're in the city of Grake, on the outskirts of the Rurin Empire, and our chef's eyes widen in surprise. Now our chef's eyes widen as he takes in the unfamiliar surroundings. Who knew pursuing his passion for cooking would lead him on a wild adventure? He's still trying to wrap his head around the situation. Errant dragons and all, in this remote area of a world he was suddenly summoned to. A world filled with monsters, magic, and an empire at war with dragons. What a ridiculous situation. Everything is incredibly confusing, but humans are known for their adaptability, or so they say. He's trying to accept the current situation as soon as possible, thinking positively. After all, he almost died after being hit by a truck, but luckily he got a second chance. And this world can't be that bad, right? No college exams, no military service after graduation. He's actually kind of relieved. But now he's looking for his own strength. And just as he's thinking that, he hears a voice from above, announcing an edict from the emperor. The fate of the Rurin Empire is at stake. The mercenaries have fled, the knights are falling, and there's no place left to run from those dragons. Everyone's shouting in agreement. The atmosphere is electric. The emperor's command is clear. Fight in the name of the knights, and our hero is swept up in the momentum. Little does he know, the day he was summoned, the Rurin Empire was facing a great crisis due to the war against the dragons. And with the military power provided by mercenaries not enough, the enlistment system was implemented. Regardless of status, all men between 17 and 45 were drafted into the Templar Knights. And since our hero doesn't have any relatives who are high-ranking officials, he's gotten enlisted. Talk about a baptism by fire. He's now part of the Templar Knights, fighting for the Empire and trying to survive in this crazy new world. The war against the dragons is intense, and our hero's got his work cut out for him. But he's determined to make the most of this second chance. And who knows, maybe he'll even find a way to return home. Or maybe he'll find a new home here, in this strange and wonderful world. He's shouting ahead with the other cadets, his voice echoing through the training center as he begins his service as a knight, becoming Cadet 32, with a magic potential deemed quite high, destined for the magic corps, but he's not exactly thrilled about it. Comparing the food at the training center to boiled potatoes with cardboard, his face scrunched up in distaste, wondering how anyone can survive on such bland cuisine. But then a spark of inspiration hits him, and he thinks to himself, I can open a restaurant here and it'll be a hit. His eyes lighting up with excitement, his unfulfilled dream now within reach, and with only 2 years left in his service, he's counting down the days. But little does he know, his service period is actually 15 years, and he's going to have to endure it. But for now, he's living his dream, running his own restaurant, and it's a huge success. Tears of joy streaming down his face. As a woman approaches him, concern etched on her face, and he quickly wipes away his tears, trying to compose himself, and she introduces herself as Rain. And it's a beautiful moment, a new beginning, a new friendship, all unfolding in this cozy little restaurant. Elle's chatting with Rain, and she's asking him if he's new around here, and he's nodding in agreement, and she's curious about him, wondering if he's alone in this new town, and he's telling her about his friend from the military, who's currently sleeping off her exhaustion, and Ryan's interested in his plans, asking him about his restaurant venture, and if he needs a reliable meat supplier, and Elle's all ears, eager to learn more. And Rain's happy to help, mentioning her husband's butcher shop, Knowles, and Elle's grateful for the tip, deciding to check it out right away, and Rain's warning him about her husband's fiery personality, saying he can get a bit harsh sometimes. But Elle's not worried, thinking to himself that Rain's nice, so her husband can't be that bad, and he's wondering what kind of person her husband is, and how fiery his personality really is. And when he arrives at the butcher shop, he's greeted by Rain's husband, who's not exactly welcoming, refusing to sell him meat, claiming he's been burned by shady restaurant owners before, who try to negotiate cheap prices and then sell the meat at inflated prices. And Elle's trying to reassure him that he's not like that. But Rain's husband is skeptical, and he's telling Elle that he's not selling to anyone, and Elle's asking him why he's being so stubborn. And Rain's husband is just shaking his head, saying he's not going to fall for the same tricks again. But just as things are getting heated, Rain walks in, scolding her husband and apologizing to Elle, explaining that her husband gets angry easily, and Elle's just happy to get his hands on some quality meat, specifically Bellerin meat, and Ryan's husband is still grumbling, but eventually relents thanks to his wife's intervention, and Elle's breathing a sigh of relief, thinking that this could be the start of a beautiful business relationship. Rain's scolding her husband, telling him to keep quiet and go get the meat, apologizing again to Elle, explaining that her husband's past experience with a restaurant owner, a former colleague from his mercenary days, left a bad taste in his mouth, literally. And Elle's listening intently, asking her if he was a mercenary soldier, and she's nodding, adding that he doesn't look old enough to have been through so much, asking if he was drafted, and Elle's sharing his story, telling her about the troubles he faced, the bad things he went through over the past 15 years. And just then, Ryan's husband returns with the meat, handing it over to Elle, saying he should show off his culinary skills, offering him precious Berlin meat, claiming it's delicious no matter how it's cooked, but warning Elle that from now on, he'll only supply meat to restaurants he approves of. And Elle's thinking to himself, I never thought I'd be getting this meat instead of Berlin, deciding to make a proper dish using the meat, knowing that if he doesn't satisfy Ryan's husband, he won't be getting any more meat, let alone a single piece of fat, and he's feeling the pressure. But he's determined to prove himself, to show Ryan's husband that he's a skilled chef, and he's already thinking about the dish he's going to make, something that will showcase the meat's flavor, something that will impress Ryan's husband. And he's getting excited, his passion for cooking ignited, and he's ready to take on the challenge. Reen's husband is boasting about his exquisite taste, warning Elle to prepare well, but Reen's having none of it, hitting him and telling him to behave, and Elle's intervening, saying it's fine, he'll cook for them. And Reen's surprised, but happy, asking if he'll be using the meat her husband provided, and Elle's politely declining, saying the meat he has is enough, and he's confident he can make something delicious out of it. And Ryan's explaining the local lingo, where cows are called wuka, chickens are palenque, and wolves are belren. And Elle's nodding, taking it all in, and he's getting ready to cook, saying they'll be arriving soon, and he's proudly displaying the pork belly, saying it's a top-notch meat. And in their world, palenque is a pricey ingredient, but pork belly is budget-friendly, and the natural way to enjoy it is by grilling. And Ryan's asking her husband why he's being so harsh. And he's defending himself, saying he just wants to test Elle's cooking skills, but Ryan's calling him out, saying he's just making excuses. And what he really wants to see is Elle's sense of responsibility. And Elle's busy in the kitchen, expertly cutting the meat, and explaining that every magic has its own way of being used. And the cuts he's making will enhance the absorption of the marinade. And as he's baking the meat, the moisture on the surface quickly evaporates, allowing for a crisper texture. And he's proudly presenting the finished dish. And Rain and her husband are walking in, and Elle's inviting them to take their seats, saying he'll bring the food shortly. And Rain's admiring the neat presentation. And her husband is grumbling, but Rain's telling him to stop being grumpy and wait for the food. Elle's expertly cooking the pork belly, lightly coating the griddle with oil to prevent sticking, and carefully placing the meat skin side down to achieve even grilling. And As the meat sizzles, the aroma fills the air, making everyone's mouth water, and El's thinking to himself that a bit more time for the moisture to evaporate would have been perfect. But he's confident in his cooking skills, and when he presents the dish, Ryan's eyes widen in delight. And Mr. Knowles scrutinizing the plate, but takes a bite, and his expression changes, and Rain's raving about the flavors, saying it's the best wooba dish she's ever had, and El's beaming with pride, and Mr. Knowles impressed, saying the contract is sealed, and he'll supply El with the finest meat from the Luverne Empire, and El's grinning, shaking Mr. Knowles' hand, saying it's a pleasure to work with him, and Reen's laughing, saying her husband's going to admit it all, and El's feeling relieved, knowing he's found a good butcher shop, and just then his business partner wakes up, sniffing the air, saying she smells something nice, and El's inviting her to join them, saying there's more food coming, and It's early evening in the suburbs of Grake City, and El's restaurant is bustling with customers, all raving about his delicious wooba pork dish, and El's beaming with pride, thanking them for their kind words, and inviting them to come back soon. And as the evening winds down, El's thinking about wrapping things up, reflecting on the importance of condiments and spices in cooking. But he's realizing he's running low on pepper and other essential spices, which are rare and expensive in this world, and not as varied or high quality as those back in his own world. So he's deciding it's time to restock, and he's thinking about using his trusty summoning magic, which allows him to bring objects from his own world, a spell he coincidentally created while searching for a way back home. And while it's not perfect, it's been a huge help, allowing him to access goods he couldn't otherwise get, like that coveted red pepper box. And he's feeling a bit guilty about just taking products, so he's making sure to send over some gold coins as payment. And he's also sending over some groceries, though he's learned that unless they're processed products like meat, eggs, or veggies, they arrive spoiled, and even processed goods have expiration dates. But that's not a major issue, though using the spell is exhausting, and El's hoping to find a better solution someday. But for now, he's just grateful to have this convenient workaround, and he's already thinking about what other ingredients he needs to restock, and how he can use his summoning magic to get them. And he's feeling a sense of excitement and possibility. El's feeling exhausted, still getting used to his new life in this world, and even though he's an archmage, he's limited to performing his summoning magic only once a day, so he's looking forward to unwinding with a cold beer. But his plans are foiled when he discovers his beer is missing, and he knows exactly who the culprit is, his colleague and friend who's always getting into mischief, and he heads to her room, giving her a knock, and she's playing innocent. But El's not buying it, teasing her about not cleaning up after herself, and she's jokingly claiming she's a dragon above such mundane tasks. But El's not having it, reminding her of their past, how he took her in after she lost her mother and home during the Dragon War, and how she's still too young to be considered a full-fledged dragon, and he's playfully blackmailing her into peeling onions in exchange for dinner, promising to make her favorite hamburger steak. And she's eagerly agreeing, her eyes lighting up at the prospect of a tasty meal, and El's chuckling, knowing he's got her right where he wants her. And just as they're negotiating, the butcher walks into the restaurant, asking El to bring him some drinks and snacks, and El's telling him to wait, still busy teasing his colleague, who's now diligently peeling onions, hoping to earn her dinner reward. And El's thinking to himself that it's moments like these that make all the hard work worth it. The butcher is savoring El's cooking, remarking that the alcohol has a unique taste, but pairs well with the meat. And El's smiling, thinking to himself that the butcher seems a bit off today, and then the butcher drops a bombshell, saying he thinks his wife Rain is cheating on him, and El's shocked, asking him what makes him think that. And the butcher explains how Rain's been dressing up and meeting a colleague from her mercenary days, and El's listening intently, trying to make sense of it all, and the butcher's getting emotional, saying he can't live without Rain, but he needs to face the truth. And El's trying to calm him down, saying getting drunk won't solve the problem, but the butcher's insisting, saying he can't face the truth sober. and El's realizing the butcher's still deeply in love with Rain, despite his suspicions. And he's offering to help the butcher get to the bottom of things, saying he doesn't think Rain's the kind of person to cheat, and he's gathering his partner to help with the investigation. And they're all heading to the restaurant where Rain's supposed to be meeting her colleague, and they're keeping a safe distance, observing from afar, and Rain's sitting at a table with a man, and El's wondering if this is the mercenary colleague the butcher was talking about. And they're all watching, waiting to see what happens next. And El's partner is whispering to him, asking what's going on, and El's filling her in on the situation. El's watching from afar, trying to figure out the situation between Ryan and the man she's meeting. And he's wondering if this is the mercenary colleague Mr. Knoll was talking about, and he's calling Rurin, asking for her help in eavesdropping on the conversation. And she's agreeing, but only if El promises to make her hamburger steak. And El's agreeing, and Rurin's listening in, and Reen's talking to the man about Mr. Knoll's suspicions, and how he's getting more and more paranoid, and the man saying that Mr. Knoll's personality is such that if he finds out the truth, he'll avoid him even more. And El's thinking to himself that this doesn't look like an affair, no matter how he looks at it, and he's deciding to intervene, and he's walking over to Ryan and the man, and Rain's explaining that she's been misunderstood and that she did what she did for the sake of their marriage, and El's agreeing, saying that Mr. Knoll's misunderstanding both of them, and he's taking them to the restaurant to clear things up with Mr. Knoll, and Mr. Knoll's surprised to see Ryan and the man together, and Reen's trying to explain, saying it's not what he thinks, and El's intervening, saying that Ment should explain himself and that hitting him won't resolve the issue, and Mr. Knoll's calming down, listening to Ment's explanation, and El's suggesting they all sit down and talk things through. And he's offering to make some food to calm Mr. Knoll's nerves, and he's using the Berlin meat that Ryan provided, and he's making a hearty soup to soothe Mr. Knoll's stomach. And they're all sitting down, waiting for El to serve the food. El's finishing up the meal, carefully preparing the sauces and soup, and he's hoping that the food will help resolve the misunderstanding between Rain, Mr. Knoll, and Ment. And he's calling out to them, saying the food is ready, and they're all gathering around the table. And Rain's explaining how Ment lent them money to start their store, and Ment's apologizing for not telling Mr. Knoll the truth, and El's serving the food and they're all taking a bite, and Ment's commenting on the tiny pieces of meat. And El's explaining that it's because the dish is meant to be eaten directly from the soup, and Ment's asking Mr. Knoll if he remembers the Perun battle, and Mr. Knoll's nodding, saying he still remembers that day vividly, and they're both reminiscing about the past, and how Mr. Knoll caught a wild belle et Lorraine to make a soup, and Ment's saying it was the best meal he'd ever had, and Mr. Knoll's agreeing, and they're both laughing, and the tension is dissipating, and El's happy to see that the food is bringing them together, and they're all chatting and laughing, and Ment's asking Mr. Knoll why he helped him despite his plans after retirement, and Mr. Knoll saying he didn't have any plans, and Ment's apologizing, and they're all enjoying their meal, and the atmosphere is warm and friendly, and El's thinking to himself that this is what he loves about cooking, bringing people together and creating memories. And he's feeling grateful to be a part of this moment, and he's refilling their bowls, and they're all savoring the flavors, and the conversation is flowing easily, and they're all laughing and joking, and the evening is turning out to be a wonderful one. Rurin's teasing El, saying that a promise to a dragon is absolute, but El's not holding up his end of the bargain, and El's apologizing, saying he'll make her hamburger steak right away. But Rurin's pointing out that it's already nighttime, and El's realizing he's lost track of time. And just then, Mr. Ment's calling out to him, saying he enjoyed his meal and wants to ask him something. And El's curious, wondering what Mr. Ment wants. And Mr. Ment's explaining that the mercenary group needs a place to host a dinner before a big mission. And he's asking if they can use El's restaurant. And El's thinking to himself that a group dinner for the mercenary group sounds like a big deal. And he's wondering what kind of challenges it will bring. And just then, Mr. Knoll's chiming in, asking if El really believes in the existence of Palanku, a mythical monster that's said to be incredibly fast and elusive. And El's saying that it seems like Mr. Ment doesn't have any Palanku meat. But Mr. Ment's saying that he's heard rumors of Palanku sightings in the lemon forest, and he's regretting his decision to choose Palanku as the main course for the mercenary group's celebration meal. El's teasing Rurin, saying it's her turn to do the dishes, and Rurin's jokingly complaining, saying El's only useful because he ate the dragon heart. And El's laughing, saying it's quite convenient. And Rurin's saying that nothing beats a beer after a job. And El's agreeing, saying she shouldn't drink too much. They need to save some for the guests. And just then, a group of men walk in, asking if this is the restaurant Ment mentioned. And one of them saying he can't trust Ment. But another one's defending him, saying Ment's a senior mercenary, and Ment's introducing his junior Mullen to El. And El's welcoming them, saying the food is ready, and he's serving them deep-fried Palanku. And they're all amazed, saying it's a legendary creature. And El's jokingly telling them to try it before it gets cold, and they're all taking a bite, and their eyes are widening in amazement, saying it's so delicious. And El's smiling, happy to see his customers enjoying his food, and he's teasing Mullen, telling him not to eat it all by himself, and Rurin's whispering to El, saying there are too many people today. And El's nodding, thinking to himself that it's going to be a busy night. El's asking Rurin for help with the servings, and she's jokingly complaining, saying he's asking a dragon to serve humans. And El's teasing her, saying she's the one who caught the legendary Palanku. And Rurin's playfully rolling her eyes, and El's reminding her of their plan to open a restaurant together. And Rurin's saying she's changed her mind, but El's not giving up, and Rurin's finally agreeing to help, saying serving can be a novel amusement for a dragon. And El's grateful for her help, and they're working together, serving the customers, and after a long day, El's thanking Rurin for her help, and they're sitting down to enjoy a meal together, and Rurin's saying it's delicious, and El's happy to see her enjoying the food. And just then, Metadonna, the Black Dragon Elder, walks in, and El's surprised to see him, and Metadonna's saying he's doing well, considering the small space, and Rurin's saying she's not uncomfortable. And El's asking Metadonna if he came because of Rurin, and Metadonna's saying yes, he did, and El's wondering what's going on. And Metadonna's saying he had a big argument, and El's curious, wanting to know more. And Metadonna's saying his mouth is still sharp, and El's laughing, thinking to himself that Metadonna's still as fiery as ever. Lurin's whispering to herself, saying she'll stay with El, and Metadonna's asking El what he plans to do now after abandoning Lurin twice. And El's defending himself, saying he was just late, and Metadonna's bringing up the past, mentioning Lurin's mother's sin against their clan, but El's cutting him off, saying that's enough, and Metadonna's getting to the point, talking about the promise they made to him, and El's agreeing, saying dragons value their promises above all else, and Metadonna's explaining that there's an order to promises, and the first one made takes priority. And El's curious, asking what this promise is. And Metadonna's explaining the Black Dragon clan's rules, saying that a dragon without their own lair by the time they're 800 years old becomes a ward and must leave for the sacred lands. And El's listening intently, learning about the dragon's customs. And Metadonna's saying that Lurin's mother's lair was destroyed in the last war. And Lurin will have to leave for the sacred lands next year when she turns 800. And El's reacting impulsively, saying, "Let's do it. What's the big deal?" And Metadonna's looking at him sternly, saying, "It's not that simple." And El's realizing that he's gotten himself into something much bigger than he anticipated. And Metadonna's explaining that breaking the clan's rules would mean war. And El's thinking to himself that he's in over his head, but he's not one to back down from a challenge. And he's looking at Lurin, seeing the determination in her eyes, and he's knowing that he'll do whatever it takes to help her. And Metadonna's watching them, seeing the bond between them, and he's nodding, saying that he'll give them a chance, but they'll have to prove themselves. And El's nodding, saying he's ready, and Lurin's smiling, saying she's ready too. And the three of them are standing there, ready to face whatever challenges come their way. Thanks for tuning in. If you're hooked and want more, please comment and subscribe. Your comments and subscriptions fuel my motivation to continue. I'll see you in the next part.